it's helped me to start to ask for help, which is something that I have never really been able to do at all. Hi, welcome back to Spoonie Squared. I'm Becky, and today I'm going to be doing an update. And this is kind of a life update since getting my diagnosis. I was diagnosed 3 months ago. Fun fact, I was actually diagnosed on World Autism Day, so I guess I'll never forget what that date is. And there's been a number of different types of changes in my life since getting the diagnosis. So I thought that I would kind of just have a bit of a chit chat with you about what that has looked like for me, the highs, the lows, everything in between, kind of material changes in my life, as well as kind of emotional changes and things that haven't changed at all, really. So here's my update. I still feel really, really new in the world of autism, kind of understanding my own autism and going back and looking at my life and kind of processing what it means. I still feel like I'm just so fresh on the journey. If anything, I feel like more of a baby in this journey now than I did before my diagnosis. I don't know, there was something before the diagnosis where kind of I'd read lots of things and everything was making sense, and then post-diagnosis it was like, oh, I really have to embody this now, and that's definitely felt very, very different and strange, and I don't know. So that's definitely a big processing thing that I'm still very much in the beginning of. There has been one big change I would say I've made in my life, like a conscious decision that I've made, which hasn't been purely because of the autism diagnosis, but that definitely played a part. And that is that I resigned from my startup, Exponential Changemakers. I was a founder, I am a founder of that business. I've been involved for the last 18 months. And the thing with startup businesses is they require a lot of upfront investment before you're able to start making money from them and start seeing any kind of returns from them. And from the point of view of me being an autistic person and getting my autism diagnosis, I was finding that there were a lot of different reasons that I was carrying a lot of stress in this business. And when I got my diagnosis, I didn't have time to process things, but I also became really acutely aware of the environment and whether it was supporting me and the best thing for me, given the fact that I have autism and I'm able to kind of now see the implications of being in an environment that doesn't work for me. So that's really why I made the decision to leave. And for those of you who are entrepreneurs, this might make sense. It may or may not, actually, because I think this is my kind of second business. I've got a little bit more of an understanding of it, but I think when you have an idea and a mission and you go on that mission, you know it's going to take investment and time and energy, and you kind of keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And you have to put on the hat of, like, you are an investor because you are putting in time. You might not be putting in lots of money, but you're putting in lots of time and energy. And so I had to put that hat on and say, can I continue to invest the time and energy, knowing what it does for me? And getting my autism diagnosis made it much, much clearer for me what situations were good and what situations were bad for me. And I was like, do you know, I need stability in my life right now. I need to have a bit more of a consistent income. Yeah, that's kind of been the biggest choice I've made. And that has allowed me, I'm only a couple of weeks in, and that's really what's provided space for me to start to really process everything to do with getting an autism diagnosis, and to kind of give myself the space and a rest that I need to start to figure it out, and for the diagnosis itself to really have a bit more of an impact in my life. So that's really the only material change I've made in terms of post-diagnosis. I guess I've been doing some other things in terms of like just being really clear on my boundaries and knowing that I need space is, it's really, really important to me. And so making sure I get those things, which the diagnosis has kind of given me permission to do. And but really, there's not been massive other material changes. There's things I want to do, and I will be doing in the coming months. But let's be real, the things that really make a difference here are the emotional changes, the roller coaster that you go on. Somebody asked me the other day, have you started grieving yet? And I've been thinking a lot about this idea of grief in terms of getting an autism diagnosis and the kind of then having to look back on your whole life. And there's a bit of a saying goodbye to the person you thought you were and realizing that there's a different lens on everything that's happened in your life. So for me, and I should say, like, at the end of the day, you're not a different person. And I think that camouflaging, masking, mirroring, like, is where this really comes into play, is the idea of like trying to figure out what's real, what's not, and trying to figure out who you are. So I've kind of been in my brain a lot rather than kind of like in my body in terms of how I'm processing this at the moment. Like lots of thinking, but I don't feel like I've properly processed it. So I do think there is some grieving to come, and I think it's just, and having stepped down from this job that was taking up a lot of my time, I have now had some space in the last couple of weeks. There have definitely been moments. When I started this channel, I talked about having invisible disabilities, and I kind of have processed that in a very cognitive way. Yeah, invisible disabilities. There's just things that stand in my way a little bit, hold me back, but other people can't see them. And then the other day, I actually got, like, I was quite upset because, and this comes on to something else that's happened since diagnosis, but I was quite upset because I had got some comments on YouTube, and I know that I need to like grow a thick skin or whatever on this. But at the same time, I actually kind of wanted to take seriously what I was hearing from other people, because what I felt I'd done is kind of said something clumsily, which then had maybe offended people in the autistic community. Maybe not. I don't even know. I mean, commenters on YouTube, you don't know who they are. You don't know what the context is. It was probably, not a lot, but it upset me, and that was kind of the first moment that I had a bit of a just breakdown. And I don't mean, it's kind of more of a like, I let myself crumble, if that makes sense. And it's really the first time since getting a diagnosis that I have done that, and I really feel like that's a kind of starting point, opening the door to processing, to moving through, to like stepping into like doing hard work, or doing some work to get to the point of really understanding who I am, which I know is probably a lifelong quest. But when I was in tears and my friend was here, and they said, I just, yeah, it wasn't to do with the comments, and I was like, it's got nothing really to do with the comments, it's just, everything. And they said to me, yeah, but you're a disabled person, and therefore things are going to be harder for you. And saying it like that, instead of normally I'm like, yeah, I've got invisible disabilities. But when somebody else said to me, you're a disabled person, that kind of hit quite hard. And again, I've read this. It's not like it's terms that I don't read all the time on when we're talking about autism, and of course I have chronic condition as well. So but hearing that kind of made me look at myself differently, and maybe, yeah, in a way that, again, I need to process. The other thing is that I thought when I got a diagnosis, I was going to, oh, I'm a member of the neurodivergent community now. That kind of like is a is a way of getting a pass into that community. And I think something I've really realized is like how different everybody's experiences are. I mean, autism and ADHD, definitely not the same thing, but like every single individual, and I mean, obviously, like autism and ADHD aren't the only types of neurodivergence. There's just so many different ways in which it shows up, and so many people having so many different experiences and different perspectives, and my experience is just one experience, and that I've got a lot of work to do to really better understand the wider neurodivergent community. Obviously that's not a surprise. I know that like everybody's experiences are different, but I think that realizing that you don't just kind of automatically, it's not like, oh, suddenly everybody who's neurodivergent is going to understand me or be my friend. It doesn't work like that. And so this idea of belonging and acceptance, which I think so many of us are seeking when we are neurodivergent, is a something that you're like, oh, well, maybe I'll just find that now that I'm part of this community, and I have in some ways in some parts of the community, but not in other ways. There's still a long way to go with that. It's really hard for me to talk about the fact that I have a lot of internalized ableism. So the way that shows up for me, and it really noticed it after I got a diagnosis. I thought the diagnosis would be a relief. I thought I'm like an accepting person. I celebrate difference, and then after I got the diagnosis, I definitely realized that a lot of my internal dialogue was, oh, you're like, there's something wrong with you, and realizing that it's really nuanced, it's really challenging. Maybe my communication skills aren't great here, but kind of trying to explain to you, there's the thing of like, there's something different about you, which is not the same as there's something wrong with you, but like my internal dialogue was like, there is something wrong with you. And you've always thought that you like are a certain way and people perceive you in a certain way, but that's not who you are at all. Like, you're this other, and you've always been awkward, and you've always been weird, and you've never been understood by other people, and you just think you have in certain situations. So that's a lot of what my internal dialogue was saying. And this ableism shows up in other ways for me as well, especially around, more so probably with my chronic illness, I think. But it's to do with, also, I guess also with the autism, with kind of shutdowns and burnouts and boundaries, kind of almost like not wanting to set boundaries, not wanting to be the person who works really hard and is really productive and can do things all the time, and kind of still have some kind of aspiration to be somebody who can burn the candle at both ends, even though I'm very vocal about the fact that I can't. But like internally there's still that monologue there of like, yeah, but if you could, you'd be such a better person, wouldn't you? And so that's something that I really, I think is, again, going to be a really long journey to work through. So what's next? That's a good question. So I am taking a little bit of time off over the summer. I am going to be taking some time, first of all, to just have like a little staycation, which kind of starts today. Woohoo! Because I was working all day yesterday. So yeah, a little mini staycation. But what I really want to do, and I don't know if this is like the autistic person in me, but certainly my brain really wants me to essentially like create myself my own little retreat. So it's a retreat to rest, to rediscover, to kind of do some of that shadow work and inner work and work through some of the challenges that I've been having, but also then to like really come back, realign, relaunch my business, and get out there and look for other opportunities and have some fun. Like, do things that actually light me up, focus on special interests, spend some time with the people who I know care about me and who are part of my support system, who always get put on the back burner because social situations are so exhausting to me. So I'm trying to kind of bring them, you know, more to the forefront, because obviously those people are really, really important to me. So that's the next steps. And like I said, I do think that this idea of kind of the grieving process is something that I'm only just scratching the surface on. So there is a long way to go, and I am really grateful to have got diagnosis. I think it has been helpful, first and foremost, just in terms of me giving myself permission, and it's helped me to start to ask for help, which is something that I have never really been able to do at all. And I guess, I don't know, maybe it's like an ableism thing of, no, I'm independent, I can do everything I need to do, I don't need anyone's help. And I have really like been strident, if that's the right word. It probably means something totally different to what I think it means, in terms of trying to step forward on my own and make things work on my own. I crave my own space so much, so I really want to be able to you know, live this life I live here. I live on my own with my cat, like, and that is just so important to me. And I've wanted, you know, being able to afford to live an independent life and to live on your own is quite a challenge. So even, yeah, so asking for help in many different ways is something that I really need to get more comfortable with, asking for support, and recognizing that I do need support, that I'm not just somebody who can float through life on my own. Nobody is. So that's definitely going to be a big part of my journey coming up. I hope you have enjoyed this rambly video, that it's given you some insights, just some small insights. I know there's so much more to dig into, and I would love to hear in the comments if anything resonated with you. Let me know if there's anything I can do to support you and help you. And I'd love to hear, like you said, if you've got any tips or advice. So thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Please share this with anyone who you think needs to see it. And I will talk to you again soon. Bye.